And we are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. Much delayed, but never deterred. I had to disassemble my video broadcast stuff this week, which you can tell by the slightly more orange glow than I normally have here on Plus One EXP. But I am very excited this morning after a number of technical difficulties and not having everything quite where we want it to be, sitting down with Charlie Ferguson-Avery. One, because I love Charlie. Charlie's a great person. And I enjoy that we live near each other and just wish we saw each other more often. I am going to be out in Lancaster, E-Town next week instead of where I normally am over in Harrisburg. So maybe we can get lunch or catch up sometime next week. But that's not what we're here for today. We're here today for a Zimo workshop. Charlie, if somebody asked you what is Zimo, what would you say?
I would say that it's a month about creating tabletop role-playing zines. And also, it is a large community effort. Well, one, it's entirely run by the community. We have a showcase website, and we also have an enormous amount of resources for helping people make their zine, if they so wish. Democratized and worldwide.
Awesome. So rather than it being run by a single corporation, there's a group of individuals, there's a community around it, and though we use some of the infrastructural support of Feral Indie Studios or Plus One EXP, neither one of those companies owns it. It's a totally separate thing. We are here largely as individuals who just have access to wider resources because of our affiliation with horrible corporations.
Yes.
But we also run those horrible corporations. And so the reality is, though, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk specifically during Zine Month because we do a series of educational workshops about art direction on a budget. This is going to be specifically looking at zine art direction, though not exclusively at zine art direction, because a lot of this will be applicable to the broader ttrpg art direction thing. So I'm really excited. Why don't you tell us a little bit more specifically about what we're going to be talking about as we talk about art directing your zines on a budget?
So I am taking a page from the way a lot of old school Renaissance publications were made, which was specifically the mindful use of public domain art, as well as where you can source your artwork and how you can source your artwork mindfully in a way that, like, one, legally you are allowed to. Two, you can create a product that has a professional level look to it. And also just kind of like considering what you want your zine to look like from start to finish, and how thinking about that from start to finish helps you pick out the artwork along the way. Also, it's free. So
there you go. So I am going to be here the entire time. If you have questions, we want you to drop them in the chat. We will have a Q&A section later, but Charlie, if you want to hit present on your screen, I'm going to drop out and let you take over.
Sure thing. I am firing it up now, and we are, oh, come on. There we go. All right. So as Tony has already kind of gone into a little bit, my name is Charles Ferguson-Avery. I am an illustrator, a writer, and a layout artist for Feral Indie Studio. Some of my work includes Into the Weird and Wild, Vast in the Dark, They Cried Monster, and a whole other slew of zines. And oh, I completely forgot, Into the Cesson Citadel. But
shipping now.
Yes, shipping now. My living room is currently filled to the brim with the 938 orders. So that being said, I am presenting Art Directing Your Zines While Broke, which is the shortened and condensed version of what technically the title of this should be.
I have a question, Charlie. Do you think that your slides are in present mode right now, or do you know that they are not?
They should be.
You may want to reshare and select the actual. So you want to hit present and then select the presentation, not select the slide deck tab. You're fine. You're fine. You just want to stop sharing for a second.
Okay, stop presenting.
And then you're going to want to reshare. And you're going to want to select the, now it should have the presented version option up.
Okay. Problem is I don't know if I can window Zimo. All right. Start from first slide.
No. But here's what we can do. I can just zoom in on that, and you can just manipulate it from the actual presentation deck. And for our viewing audience, if we hadn't had this conversation, They wouldn't have known the difference.
Yeah. Just kind of wish that had worked. Says bar slide plane. God. Yeah, it's not working.
That's fine. So go ahead. We should have troubleshot that beforehand, and I totally spaced on asking you that question in advance. So I'll take the heat for that. But go ahead and hit present again.
All right.
And I am just gonna. What up, Zinester? Says Will Jobs. Anton the Storyteller says no stress on this end. Yeah, but go ahead and hit present mode again.
Okay, present mode is hit.
Is it? Go ahead and select whatever you want to be presenting. Okay. There we go. And yeah, I'm just gonna zoom in so that for the viewing audience, it's just zoomed in on whatever slide you are looking at in the presentation deck at that point in time. So currently, we've got the mindfully sourcing public domain. Oh, it does say click to add title across the front.
Yeah. Not sure why it's doing that. It should just start. Wait, select your settings. All slides, full screen, in a window. Okay, here we go. Bam. Okay.
All right, there we go. We got it this time.
Okay.
You may have to unshare, reshare. You got it. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
And I am still going to zoom in just a little bit to make that look a little bit better. And then we're going to be off to the actual races.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Damn you, LibreOffice Impress. Anyway, so long form. This was meant to be a bit of a joke. Mindfully sourcing public domain Creative Commons artwork and design elements to create a cohesive style and art direction for your zine while broke. So this workshop is sort of teach you how to do cohesive and thoughtful art direction even when you have no budget or art. This budget can include your time. Like it's perhaps you work a day job, you still want to make a zine. You're not going to have the time to create the artwork yourself. This is something that I myself have run into. It could be that you are uncomfortable with creating the art yourself. Perhaps it's a lack of skill, or just, you choose not to, whatever the choice may be. And then finally, in regards to budget, it can be legitimately, you don't have the money to hire an artist. You don't have the money to license artwork. Whatever it might be, this is something that you need to consider, and this is a sort of way around it. So now just kind of want to touch briefly on what art direction is and why does it matter. So broadly speaking, art direction is just the attempt at creating and maintaining a style and vision for a piece of art or a body of work. In this case, it's all about zines. Here I actually have a couple of examples that have used, have a very clear and concise art direction. And also in the case of, I believe, everything except Bastards, all of them use public domain art. Morkborg kind of sort of stands out among the rest, but then of course there's the original Gardens of Yin, The Wonderful and the Light of a Ghost Star by Highland Paranormal Society. And what these have is that they all have a very clear and concise art direction. In the case of Gardens of Yin, all the artwork is sourced from very select few artists. Morkborg keeps everything in very concise style. Bastards uses a wonderful, clean, simple graphic design, and Light of the Ghost Star sort of follows a bit of a mix of everything. So this art direction is important because it creates cohesion across the zine. It emphasizes the themes, the moods, and it also, and this is kind of important for what we are about to do, it helps you select and decide what art to seek out when you're putting your zine together. Now, one caveat, when I refer to art over the course of this presentation, I am referring to public domain artwork, and I'm referring to artwork that falls under Creative Commons with attribution or Creative Commons no copyright. Basically, art that you have an express purpose to use, or there is no copyright or license usage. This is just sort of to protect yourself, and also to make sure that you're not harming the artists or entity that this art belongs to. I can't really go into like too many of the legality specifics, but just know, like, over the course of this, when I refer to art, I'm referring to art that belongs in the public domain. And when you are sourcing your artwork, you should look for artwork specifically that falls in the public domain. So now we begin. So let's say you have a zine in mind. You've either started writing it, you have a vision, or you just kind of want to make a zine. Honestly, just the wanting to make a zine is a good enough reason to start making a zine. As you start to put it together, what you're going to do is kind of think about the zine and pick a couple of what I'm going to call keywords. So keywords are just kind of like these, like the roughest way that you can start with the art direction. These are some examples of my own work and some of the keywords that I used when I started them and sort of developed along the way. They just exist to sort of keep you on track and keep you focused on the art and direction that you need to be looking for. So once you develop your keywords for your particular piece, we're going to go and we're going to start grabbing reference. Reference in this case meaning art that you don't exactly have, well, you cannot use and you're not going to use, but you are just sort of developing how you're going to go about words. You're just grabbing art that is going to set the tone and mood for what you're going to make. Basically, inspiration. This can be anything from images, graphic design, other publications, anything that you think that fits within those keywords. Once again, we're just kind of keeping those keywords there to stay on track. So grab as much reference as you think you need, stay on track, and once you've gotten enough, now take a step back and sort of revise what you have. So look over what you like, get over the sort of extraneous pieces of art, maybe go back and revise your keywords. Perhaps you found some artwork or inspiration that made you change your mind about how you want your zine to look or the art that you want to be looking for it. And finally, now kind of start considering what the actual zine is going to look like. Now that you have your keywords, which sort of set the tone, and now you have some reference for what you might want it to look like, now you can kind of start visualizing what this zine is going to look like, or at least the art that needs to be in it. So now we have to get into like a little bit of the unfun work with this, which is the research. So you have to actually find the artwork that you want to put in the zine, which means you got to go and find the right pieces. You have the style, you have the reference, you might have even found a couple of pieces that you can use, like that fall under public domain you like, or you created yourself, etc. Once again, make sure that they fall under public domain. But say you find that one piece that you really like, and you're not 100% sure of like, where do you source more for it? This is kind of like, now we get into the research, and I'm going to show you something that I do when I source public domain artwork, and I believe can work for you. Kind of a mindful aspect of it. So I'm going to use this piece as an example. Unfortunately, honestly, this piece made me want to make a zine this month, but I am far too busy to do that. So anyway, say you want to use this particular piece for your zine. It speaks to you, it fits the theme of your zine perfectly, it's in the public domain, and you need more. You need more artwork like this. But where do you look for more artwork like this? This is the mindful sourcing of this. Well, crazy thing about art is they have people who make them, and they're called artists, and you can actually look up the artist who made that piece of artwork. So grab their name, sort of dig in, check out their body of artwork, and see if they have anything else that you can possibly use. Once again, double check to make sure it's public domain or falls under Creative Commons. But you can sort of like source their body of artwork to look for stuff that's similar. In this case, like here are 4 more pieces that they did, which definitely fall under the same category once I started looking. But you can go further. Once you have the name, then you can check when the art was made. So now you can create sort of like a cohesive body of artwork that falls under the same time period, because chances are, if it was made by, whoever was making it at the time, there were people making art at the same time that was similar to what's being made, or at least, like, at the bare minimum, they were using the same mediums, and you can find people who are using the same medium. So in this case, Odilon Redon was creating work from 1850 to 1910. So now you can look for artwork that falls under the 1850 to 1910. And you find a bunch of wonderful pieces, a lot of which you're not going to be able to use, but some of which will fall, not only you can use, but will also fall under the same cohesiveness. And then you can dig a little deeper. With that time period, with that artist, you can start to seek out their contemporaries. You can seek out other artists that they associated with. And through that, you can actually find artwork that is in the same way, or, similar, cohesive, and will work for your particular zine. So, dig deep, find if they were part of a movement, if they drew inspiration from other artists. In my case, I do have a little bit of an art history background, so this is at least a little more natural to me. But honestly, a quick Wikipedia search will find you everything that you need in regards to, like, going from the time period to that artist. And then finally, you can just break down the piece of artwork into its parts. So in the case of this, you can look at its medium. You can look at its subject matter. You can look at its stylistic choices, and just sort of like, digging into how you would describe those stylistic choices. You can sort of just source more artwork from that, whether it's from the same time period or modern, etc. This is a little bit more of the rough way of just finding it. And I recommend, like, going through the time period more. But anyway, that was a lot. At least as far as, like, trying to pick apart, like, all the different people and contemporaries and stuff. So come back for air a little bit. And I want to sort of point out what we are doing by doing to this one particular piece of artwork. And this falls under the sort of mindful aspect. With just one piece of artwork, the one piece of art that we liked, you have sourced a large collection of artwork that you can use by looking at the artist, the time period, the contemporaries, the medium, the style, the subject matter. With that one piece, you have sourced a large body of cohesive artwork that will keep in the art direction, the style that you're looking for. And you can continue to do this for every other piece that you want to. Basically building up a large collection of artwork that, once again, all stays within the same cohesive style, at least relatively. So now with that, we can actually start making the actual zine. So, get out your glue, get out your photocopier, your scissors, or, since we live in the modern world, your Affinity publisher or InDesign. Or, boy, we lost a lot in the era. Anyway, we have our style, we have our art, we're ready to put them into a zine. I'm going to touch on layout design just a little bit. I won't be getting into it too much, just because there's far too much to talk about, and there are plenty of other people that have already done an incredible job explaining it already. I believe Ian Newsom has talked about it at length, the person who made oh my god, what's it called? Shipbreaker? No, I can't remember. Hull Breach, that was it. I remember Broken Ship. I believe Ian Newsom did a very lengthy talk about it. There's also, you can check out books on it. I'm not going to talk about layout. I am not the person to go to.
We also do have a workshop coming up later in this Zimo season on basic composition and layout that Sim Posadas is going to be hosting. Coming up probably middle of it, a little bit later than we would have liked, but I am looking forward to that one. It'll be using basic tools that most people have access to and just covering some of the basics of what makes good composition.
I will have to check that out because I would love to hear that. But yeah, definitely check that out. Once again, better people talking about it in a way that I cannot. So before you lay out your zine, go ahead and go through the artwork that you have and pick out the pieces that quote unquote need to be in. Your main art. These are going to be your centerpieces. These are going to be the piece of artwork that you feel are deeply tied to the zine, or to just kind of put it bluntly, it's just art that you really want in the zine. So once you've picked those out, get their sizes, and make sure that there's room in the zine for those pieces. Give those pieces room to breathe. Set aside pages. Build text around them. The zines are like, zines, the meat of them is the meat of them is going to be text, but what's going to draw people and bring them in and also sort of elevate them are going to be these pieces of artwork. Even if it is just eye candy. So lay out your zine, do what you have to. And if you have pieces or spots in your place that need space, this is where we get into sort of the spot and fill of the layout process, which this is actually something that is beneficial about using public domain artwork, is that you can do, blanking on the word, but basically remixing. You can cut them down, you can crop elements, you can pull textures from it, place them in. And this is a time when you should feel free to be messy. Just find whatever free photo or image editing software that you have, take your public domain art, chop out pieces, etc. And yeah, if you have spots in your zine that need to be filled, feel free to fill them. Or you just have sort of inconvenient breaks in your text. This is another case to do that. So that's sort of about it as far as layout's concerned, but I kind of want to bring up one thing that sort of a lot of people have pointed out, at least whenever I've talked about using public domain, which is that you can't find the one piece that you really want to use. You're not going to be able to get everything that you want out of the zine, and that's just kind of part of it. And that's sort of the beauty of using this method, is that you have to be mindful that the art that you are looking for and the art that you are going to find is perhaps not exactly like the image in your mind, but is it a good enough representation to communicate what you are trying with the zine? Some pieces might not quite fit right, or you might not be able to find those perfect pieces. But it's part of the process, specifically about being mindful of what you can use and what works, what communicates best. And this is sort of a quote that we kind of pass around in our studio quite a bit, is if you want nice things, you have to make nice things. And especially if you're broke. And this is sort of one of those cases where what you are doing is you are finding things that you have access to, you are finding things that you have the rights to, you are putting them together and remixing them with a sort of mindful, being mindful of how they are going to fit in this larger body. And you are creating something beautiful, or at least accessible with that. And that's pretty much it. This is all about how you can source your artwork, and this is all about how you take that sourced artwork and create it into that. So I know that was a little brief and perhaps a little bit scattered, but I do hope that helps people along the way in deciding about, one, how they source their artwork, and two, if you want to make a zine and you don't have a budget, you can still make some excellent stuff, specifically just using the piles of public domain artwork that are out there.
And we aren't going to necessarily just hop immediately off. So if you have questions, if you want to see some work get done, though it may be very quick and kind of rough, ask questions, ask about what you want to see. Charlie, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing right now, I'll pop it back to the two of us, and we are going to do a little bit of Q&A right now. So again, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in. Even if it's, hey, Charlie, you mentioned this. Can you show us what that looks like? Charlie might say no. But Charlie might be able to pop up an image real quick, share out a screen, and show you a little bit about some of what that looks like, or examples of work that they've done over at Feral Indie. So again, if you have questions about that, now is the time to jump in. If you have comments, like I said in there, if you've got a favorite public domain art source, drop it in the chat. Would love to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with art directing your own zines? Do you even feel like that's a skill set that you have to know what you're looking for? If we need to take some steps back, we're happy to take some steps back. Also, again, sorry I am extra orange today. We'll get that figured out by Tuesday for sure. Which is when our next Zine Month workshop is on. Building a budget without getting audited is our next Z Month workshop, with Jay Dragon and Jarrett Crater joining us again to talk about projects they have built, both for zine scale as well as for larger scale projects. So come on back for that one. But in the meantime, the first question we've got coming in from give me a duck username, Ulysses Duckler. We've got recommendations on photo bashing and photo manipulation. So as you mentioned, like grabbing one, kit bashing images, other stuff like that. Any kind of basic tools, tips, or resources you use for that?
I mean, I have a lot of what I will call big boy programs. Specifically, I have Clip Studio. I believe I still have access to Photoshop, Affinity, etc. But there is one particular program that is completely free and honestly gets the job done. It is called Paint.net. It is a simple, bare-boned image editing software that is completely free. Give them a little bit of donation because I have used it many a times and I gave them some money. They're worth it. It allows you to use layers. It allows you to cut apart images, paste them together. So yes, Paint.net. That is the bare bones, dirt cheap one that I can think of. If you're looking to throw in a little bit more money, Clip Studio, wait for that to go on sale, is always a good option. There is, I think, Affinity Lightroom, which I have never used, but I use Affinity Publisher all the time. And if it's anything of that caliber, it's definitely worth your time and money. Those are the three that spring to mind right now. Cool. And, I will say with collage, if you're collaging a bunch of like public domain art, you don't need to worry about it. But I do believe that technically collage falls under parody, which at least in the United States copyright is protected. But it has to be, you have to change it enough for it to be
this would be a transformative work.
Yes. And, there we kind of get into like a little bit of gray area. If you're confident about it, I'm not going to say go for it, but that's something.
If you're confident about it, consult a lawyer and let them figure out what they think.
Yeah. We don't have, if somebody slaps a lawsuit on us, it's not about fighting the lawsuit. It's about getting that lawsuit off of us. Anyway,
Armando, you tried to drop a link, and I'm gonna make you a VIP because you should be anyways. You're one of my very important people, but that'll let you share that link. Currently, you cannot. So let me get you. I gotta go back and forth and do all the things. But another question that we had come in, Sleepy Fingers asked, do you have a good method for upscaling art? Example, you find an image from an old book, but it's too small for the space you want, or it's got a really low DPI. So how do you basically take these old small images potentially that haven't been well digitized and make them sized appropriately for the work that you want to do? Is there a good resource or way to kind of do some of that?
Well, one, I don't have a resource, and two, I'm actually gonna subvert that, which is that and not to say that they are imperfect things, but these are zines. When they back before we had all this these digital tools and stuff, and back before I'm not sure what happened where they kind of now we sort of see them as these beautiful, pristine publications. But if they have a low DPI and, if you're not publishing in a book, you're publishing a zine, I believe it would be fine to just sort of like, leave them as is. And once again, this is sort of like part of the art direction thing of like, how do you get like a low res image to sort of work with it, what you are creating? I guess if I had to pick something that it doesn't upscale it, but it lets you change it in a way that you can perhaps work with it a little better. I would look up dithering programs, which there's a bunch of ones online that you can do for free, which basically convert them into like a bitmap, and it lets them be upscaled and downsized in a way that they don't necessarily lose their data. They look a little chunky, but that's a way that you can sort of work with them a little better, at least perhaps with what you're trying to work with. Once again, I would say lean into the imperfection of it, and do what you can with that. At least that's what I do.
Yeah, you might look at how you're going to texture that image, what you're going to do with it, where you're going to position it, make it a repeating image at a smaller scale rather than a big one at a large scale. There's a lot of different things you can do to kind of integrate that image at that lower DPI and still have it look the way you want to. Also, too. Armando posted a link in the thread to a mega thread they did on almost free to use art resources some time ago as well. And you focus specifically on public domain for this, but Charlie, you'll put together art packages from time to time. There's a lot of other kind of royalty free or one-time purchase art packages out there that you can use in similar ways. I know you have some, which people can go find at Fairlandy Studios itch page. But are there other ones you look at, or other people who put them out on a regular basis whose work you really enjoy, or think is a really good example of kind of royalty-free, maybe single purchase art?
One big one that comes to mind, at least this morning, is Perplexing Ruins. They do a bunch of wonderful, high concept, high contrast, and very medium heavy artwork. If you got the time, if you got the money, go ahead, throw them a few bucks and get some of their stuff. It's all very fantastic and also very evocative, which is kind of something that's can sometimes be a little hard to find with licensed artwork, where a lot of the time, especially with mine, I'm trying not to hawk my artwork, but I will say that we will be having a sale on our artwork packs probably by the end of the month for Zimo specifically, where they'll be half off. But anyway, the problem with a lot of people find with licensed artwork is that it has to be just kind of it can't be too evocative, but it can't be too generic. It has to sort of fit a lot of different styles, and it has to sort of fit into a lot of possible publications. And mine definitely falls into that trap where it's a little bit more generic. It gets the work done. But Perplexing Ruins does work that does that and is also still evocative. So credit to them, and I highly recommend checking out their artwork.
Yeah. A couple other ones I'll throw out. Thomas Novosel's Patreon is a great way to get some phenomenal art assets. Tons of content out there. Amanda Lee Frank's Camaraderie page, which is like Patreon, but more ethically geared, I would say. Let's just say that is a great source for some artwork. Helvetica Blanc is one that I subscribe to that I don't see used a lot, but they do mostly I think it's like mystical art and world building is what they call it, but it's a lot of very interesting kind of big block pieces. And I know Emmy Vert has done some used a couple of their pieces in a few things, but I see them used very rarely, while they put out good content every single month that would look great in an OSR thing, a Troika thing. You're going to find some that are going to fit very well in story building things. They have a very cohesive look to them, so you can sometimes you can go pick and choose from a single source author. Evelyn, of course, comes up, Evelyn Moreau. And then Bioden's Beard is recommending Kim Diaz Home, and they released their work under CC BY license, and their stuff shreds. They used a bunch of it in Deal and Lead. Felipe Faria has some great packs on Itch, also came up as well. I'll encourage starting artists lots of times to start creating packs that they can share, and not to give the work away for free, but to say, here's a pack of assets I made for it's. If you're an artist, Zimo is a great time of year to say, hey, I put together some assets, or even thinking about, like, do you want to make a Zimo project that is an art book, but also then turn some of that art into a texture pack? Like Adam Bass from World Jam Game Co. and I were talking the other day about, and Alex, who's one of the other organizing members, team member on Fairwind Studio, like the desire to kind of expand. Like Zine Month is very RPG focused right now. It doesn't explicitly have to be, but for a lot of our community, even thinking about, because I did that big long thread on like don't participate in Zimo the other day, which was really, that was the clickbait headline. I did a clickbait, y'all. It was about how I think people should. But even if you're an established creator who wants to try something new, different, totally out of the scale, experimental, then do it during Zine Month. It's a great time to say, this isn't the normal thing I do, but I want to do it. I don't want to do it in zine format. Great opportunity for that. I think art books, it'd be really cool to see a lot of art books coming out during this time.
I definitely like, this is just sort of a small anecdote, is like I've been like racking my brain. Like I told myself, it's like, I'm not going to make a zine.
Go do it.
But like now I'm kind of like at the point where it's like, I gotta make something, and I probably won't. I'll make something and I won't release it during Z Month, but like I really do want to do something like weird and experimental. Because like, just to put it bluntly, is like, it's like, I am an illustrator and artist. I have to make products that will pay for the food that goes on my table. And I have some stuff planned for that later in the year, but I want to make a zine.
I'm hearing that somebody should reach out to you about working on their project right now. Like you could potentially pick up some illustration work right now if you wanted to.
I could, let me ship 200 more books and then I'll talk about it.
If only you knew somebody who did fulfillment. By the way,
we're not doing this right now.
We do have a fulfillment Zimo workshop coming up later on this season also too. If you are stressed about the concept of shipping your zines, making things internationally available, all those kind of things, we'll cover the ins and outs of why you should make those choices, how you should make those choices, and what options there are from home through professional fulfillment also too out there in the scene as well. But Emil Boven's name came up over on YouTube. Judd Carlman, who also loves Feral Indie Studios asset packs too. Watch it over on YouTube though. And Willow's Quest says, ooh, I was wondering about that. I don't make my own game, so I wasn't sure what types of zines were encouraged for the tag. Zimo is very broad, and even I would say a lot of the other ones, Tabletop Nonstop, Zine Quest that fall underneath kind of the Zimo concept, those are all different. Those as long as it's kind of generally TTRPG related or tabletop related, those ones it's fine. We have a very established at this point, we're not cops mentality, right? Like no member of the Zimo organizing team is going to be cruising through and looking at your project and trying to decide whether it fits or not. If you're a big corporation who submits something out of scale, that would probably trigger the Zimo team's eyes, because that's not the intent of it. But if even then it might fit. Like if Steve Jackson Games wanted to slide their typically end of Zine Quest project into Zimo also too, they do it at the end of the month. They don't make a big deal out of it. It brings eyes to the project during a time where energy is starting to wane. That's great, right? Like, but it's usually some weird thing that they wouldn't put out otherwise, right? And that's the kind of space we need to. So thinking broadly, thinking big, all that kind of stuff, I think is really an enjoyable way to approach some of this. So any other questions though about art direction specifically, something you didn't hear, something that you were hoping to hear, pardon me, any of those kind of things? Otherwise, we're going to log off in just 1 second. Like I mentioned, a couple of things we've got coming up next week. The two Zimo streams we've got going on Tuesday and Friday, I think is the plan currently. Tuesday at 4 p.m., Jarrett Crater, Jay Dragon, and myself are going to sit down and talk about building a budget without getting audited. That last part, the not getting audited, our thing is going to be consultant accountant. I can give you that hot tip right now. But building your project in a way that helps make sure you're successful, helps make sure you've taken into account all the things you need to, including things like crowdfunding fees, taxes, paying people well, paying yourself well, and making your game sustainable. All those are things we're going to start talking about during that budget building process. Jarrett and Jay, if you don't know, Jay Dragon is from Wander Home and Possum Creek Studios, has done a few hundreds of thousands of dollar Kickstarters, but also does much smaller ones a couple times a year also too. And then Jarrett's been a part of helping Merkborg Troika, Exalted Funeral launch hundreds of projects at this point in time, build out those budgets for crowdfunding as well. So very excited about that one. And then on Friday, we're going to sit down and look at the Grandmothership page for Crowdfunder by Armanda Holler. Armanda, drop that link in the chat so that people can follow the Grandmothership page, because we're going to be looking at it on Friday to talk about how it's built now, changes we would make from it. And we may even make some of those changes live if we have the assets set up to do so. Armanda can re-edit, unedit, or change any of those things also too. Hopefully Armando will be able to join us, but if they're not, part of the project team, so we're gonna hop on and look at that one live and talk about what are the things you want on your crowdfunding page specifically. And we're gonna have Leon or David, maybe both from Crowdfunder, join us for that conversation also too. And then I'll be bringing my expertise as somebody who's looked at and helped develop literally at this point thousands of crowdfunding pages thanks to Zine stuff over the last couple of years. And talk about what makes a good page. And so, absolutely. Please come back. And if you have any other questions, Armando, do your worst. It's just a blank page. Here you go, Tony. No, I just saw the cover drop on that. I'm super excited about the project. But I'm very excited to sit down and just say, hey, when I build a page, what do I do? What do I put on it? And some of it might just be like, we're going to placeholder some of this text, right? Like, here's what we should go here. We don't have it yet, but we'll still give people a sense of what that looks like and how it goes well, and pull up some past pages that we've worked on to talk about what we did there also too. But it'll be pretty platform neutral, even though we're looking specifically at the tools in Crowdfunder. So it doesn't look like we have any extra questions that have come in. That just means Charlie did an incredibly excellent job at covering everything you could possibly imagine. Charlie, you have another workshop that you're going to be doing later on this series. Tell us a little bit about what we can look forward to for that one, because it's about art also.
So I believe, oh God,
I can tell you what it's listed as currently, if that's helpful.
That might be helpful
to jog your memory. All right, let me help over, because it is published down in the workshop chat section over on the Zimo server, and I'm saying all that out loud because I'm slowly working my way over there to pull it. So that one was this one was the public domain one, and the other one is about commissioning art. So it's about when you do have a budget, what do you do then? But hopefully, I think, knowing Charlie, we'll probably look at kind of budgets on scale also too, what you can do, some of that other stuff. But essentially, when you're working, I mean, this is Charlie and I right before we went live. This is 100% what we were talking about from a corporate world perspective. But what is it like to help interface between final client or project managers or other stuff like that, and then the graphic design team who's just trying to do their best to get images taken care of, and some of the language misses that come up in that. So I'm very excited about that one. I think it's the number one thing people don't feel comfortable doing, is going to an artist and saying, I have monies, or I think I have monies and would like to hire you. What does that look like? And so I think that'll be another great workshop that we'll dive into also too. So come on back for that one. If there's a specific piece in any of these workshops that you're looking for, that we do already have our schedule. Plus One does content like this all the time. If you have a specific thing you want a workshop on, want us to discuss, anything like that, host a community conversation over. We're always happy to do that. If you ever want to come on to share your expertise, we do prestige class interviews where the goal really is to talk about the work that people do. It's oftentimes very projects based, but I would love for it to be more craft based. So let us know if you ever want to come on for an interview to share wisdom or an expertise that you have. But it's way better if you present me with a, here's what I want to come on and talk about, not I'd love to do one of those, what should we talk about? So come to me with the specific. Would love to work with you on any or all of that. We do have some projects that we are launching during Z Month. Like we said, we're working with Armanda for her project, but we also have a 4-pack of zines by 4 people who are going into print in the U.S. for the first time. I'm very excited to support those creators and not having to crowdfund, but just being able to directly print their projects. And so please come check those out. The initial art pieces have been coming back in. All of them are very, very gorgeous zines and very, very different styles. We've got a 2-pack from Super Dylan, that's a guy in the chair, and one about one that uses spin the bottles in a fairy setting. Spin the bottle is the central mechanic in a fairy setting, and I'm very excited about it also too. The Corrupted by Navarre, Last Oath by Lucas Rollum, and then we've got Boy Problems Expanded Edition with new content from Colin Cummings. It's an absolutely gorgeous zine that'll be in B5. It's the biggest project out of all of them, but it's been out for a couple of years, but we've got some new content coming, and it's never been in print, so it'll be kind of an omnibus of all the stuff from that. So you can support all that through +1exp.com and pick up other great zines. Charlie, where can people find more about you or about Feral Indie Studios?
So you can just look up Feral Indie Studio. So we have our website, feralindiestudio.com, which is where you can purchase all our zines. We are hoping to get a blog going a little later in the year. You can also check us out on Feral Indie Studio at itch.io. And I believe I'm also very active on Twitter at Charlie Fergaves. Currently, we were talking about this earlier, there's no Feral Indie Twitter at the moment, but hopefully that will change soon. Also like to say in regards to zines, imperfect, keep them imperfect, keep them weird, and keep them independent. They don't have to be these perfect little things.
Love it. We did just drop the link also to the Zimo Discord, which is a great place to connect with people in this community. Find the archives of these videos if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, but you can do that also. Come on. And then also the link to the +1 Discord, because Keegan wants us to start doing that more. It's also linked in the description as well, and we should. It's a smart thing. Keegan's not forcing me to do anything. We just need to be better about it. With that said, we love how, look at JP Covert in the chat. JP, always good to see you also too. We are really excited about all the great things coming up with Zimo. Charlie, what'd you say about zines? Keep it imperfect, keep it weird, keep it indie.
Yeah,
that's our sign off. That's our sign off for Zimo streams now. So keep it imperfect, keep it weird, keep it indie, and we will see y'all next time.